If you are hearing my voice right now, I need you to do one thing before anything else. Walk to your eastern window. Close the curtain. Do not look out. I will explain why in a moment, and I will explain it calmly, but I need that curtain closed before I begin. This is AM 720 TLF, the last frequency emergency broadcast, and tonight we have been given 48 hours. This program is a work of fiction. The station, broadcast, and events you are about to hear are not real. This audio is created for narrative and entertainment purposes only. This is AM 1720 TLF, the last frequency emergency broadcast. If you are hearing this transmission, emergency conditions are ongoing. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. This is AM 1720 TLF, broadcasting live from the studio on Brackett Avenue, and the time at the station is just past 8:30 on a Monday evening. My name is Walter Crane, and I will be at this desk through the overnight, straight through until the morning crew at 6. Some of you know me from the Sunday afternoon hour. Most of you do not. That is all right. We have time to get acquainted. It is a soft evening across the broadcast region. The kind of evening, in my experience, that doesn't ask anything of you. Our engineer tonight is a young woman named Priya, who started with us in March and who has, by my reckoning, the steadiest hands in this building. She has just signaled to me through the booth glass that levels are good and the signal is clean. So we will begin where we always begin. The weather. The Regional National Weather Service is reporting clear skies across the county through the overnight hours. Temperatures will hold near 53 degrees, with a gentle southerly wind at 5 miles per hour. Sunrise tomorrow is at 6:14 a.m. Sunset will be at 7:02 p.m. No precipitation is forecast through Thursday. Out on the roads, the State Highway Desk reports no incidents of note. The eastbound lanes of Route 11 are clear through Maplewood. Bridge repairs on Linden Street in Willow Creek have been completed, and the detour through Pine Heights is no longer in effect. A reminder to anyone driving the river road through Riverbend after dark. The deer are active in early autumn, and the reflectors east of the old grain elevator have not been replaced yet. On the community calendar, the Cedar Grove Library will hold its book sale this Saturday from 9 until 2. The Northwood Volunteer Fire Department reminds residents that hydrant testing begins Wednesday morning. So do not be alarmed if your water runs briefly rust-colored between 5 and 7 a.m. The Ashford Hills Town Council meeting has been moved from Thursday to next Monday. One additional notice came across the wire this afternoon from the Regional Emergency Operations Center. It is a routine preparedness reminder asking residents to keep a working battery radio in the household through the end of the week. No reason is specified. The phrase used is, as a standard advisory. We have read this kind of notice before. There is no cause for concern at this time. I will mention, simply because it crossed my desk, that the National Astronomical Observatory issued a brief statement this morning concerning what they described as an unusual reading in long-range solar telemetry. The statement was brief and did not specify the nature of the reading. The observatory expects to issue a clarifying update by midnight tonight. I will read that update when it arrives. We have our first caller of the evening, a man from the Maplewood area, calling in at approximately 8:51 p.m. He has given his first name as Henry. Henry is 64 years old, a retired postman, and he is not, he says, a man who calls into radio stations. According to Henry, he was sitting on his back step about half an hour ago, having a cup of coffee before bed, when he noticed something he could not place. He said the birds were wrong. That was the word he used, wrong. He said his neighborhood is normally full of robins at this hour. They roost in the maple at the corner of his yard, and tonight The maple was empty, and the robins were on the ground. All of them, sitting on the lawn in a loose half-circle, facing east. He said he watched them for 15 minutes. None of them moved. He went inside, came back out with a flashlight, shined it across the yard. The birds did not startle. They did not blink. They simply continued to sit on the lawn, facing east, in the soft fall of his porch light. He called us because, he said, he wanted to tell someone, and his wife passed 2 years ago this October, and he is in the habit of telling things first to the radio. Henry, thank you for the call. We will note it down. A late addition to The Wire, time-stamped 9:07 p.m. The National Astronomical Observatory has issued a partial statement, and I will read it as it was sent. The observatory is currently coordinating with international partners regarding a confirmed anomaly in solar and orbital telemetry. A full statement will be issued no later than midnight Eastern Time. In the interim, residents in the Eastern Hemisphere are advised to limit direct observation of the night sky, particularly in the Eastern Quadrant. This advisory is precautionary. That is the statement as received. I will note that the wording, direct observation of the night sky, is unusual for an observatory advisory. Observatories generally encourage observation. They make their living by it. We will keep watch on The Wire and bring you the midnight update as soon as it comes through. Moving on. Priya has just slipped a note under the booth glass. The note reads, 3 other stations on the regional dial just paused mid-broadcast and read an identical preparedness advisory. Word for word, different hosts. Same script. I am going to set that note aside for the moment, because I do not want to make more of it than it deserves. Stations share advisories. It is how the system is supposed to work. The fact that 3 of them read the same words within the same minute is, I am sure, the result of a coordinated wire push. I am sure of that. It is approaching 9:15. We will be back after this brief pause with a check on The Wire, our regular time signal, and any additional calls that have come in. You are listening to AM 1720 TLF, the last frequency emergency broadcast. Stay with us. It is now 9:30 p.m. on Monday, and we are back on the air at AM 1720 TLF. Before we left, I mentioned that 3 regional stations had read an identical advisory in the same minute. In the 15 minutes since, that number has become 11. Priya has been scanning the dial. 11 stations across 3 states, all reading the same 6-word phrase, at staggered times across the half hour. The phrase, which I will repeat once because you may have heard it yourself, 48 hours remain indoors. I do not know which agency authored that phrase. It does not match the formatting of the state emergency broadcast system. It does not match the National Weather Service. It does not match the observatory. It came in on The Wire with no agency stamp at all. The Wire log simply says priority, all stations, no origin. I am going to keep broadcasting in our own voice. I am going to read you what I am given, when I am given it, and I am going to tell you what I do not yet understand. We have received 5 new calls in the last 40 minutes. I want to walk through them, because I want you to hear what we are hearing. The first was from a young woman in Willow Creek, on Sycamore Lane. She said her cat, a 14-year-old indoor cat who has not jumped onto a windowsill in 2 years, climbed onto the back of the couch about an hour ago, faced the eastern window, and would not be moved. The second was a married couple in Pine Heights, on Larch Drive. They were walking their dog along the trail behind the school, when they noticed their shadows had grown long, the way shadows do at sunset. The sun set 40 minutes before they began their walk. There was no light source behind them. There was no street lamp. Their shadows were long, and they were pointing west. The third was a delivery driver in the Riverbend area. who pulled over on the shoulder of Route 11 to call us. He said the digital clock on his dashboard, which had been working fine, had begun to show 2 times stacked on top of each other. The current time, in green digits, and another time underneath it, in red. The red number was counting down. He read it to us. It read 47 hours, 12 minutes. The 4th was from a school custodian in Northwood, who was locking up the elementary school when he noticed a low hum in the building. He walked the hallways looking for it. He said the hum was coming from the fire alarm panel in the front office. The panel was off. He photographed it. It was off, and it was humming. He hung up before we could ask anything else. The 5th was from a young man named Daniel L., calling from his car at the lookout point on Hartwell Ridge. He said he had driven up to watch the stars. He said the eastern half of the sky looked, in his words, like it had been smudged with a thumb. He said the stars he could see in the west were sharp and clear. The stars in the east were not gone. They were soft, as though someone had begun to erase them and stopped halfway through. 5 callers, 5 locations. 3 of the 5 mentioned the east without prompting. At 9:53 p.m., the National Astronomical Observatory issued its update. They issued it 3 hours and 7 minutes earlier than promised. I am reading it now, exactly as it was sent, to all broadcast partners. The observatory, in coordination with the Department of Defense, the International Consortium of Orbital Monitoring Stations, and 4 allied national observatories, has confirmed a measurable shift in the Earth's orbital path. The shift is small. The shift is not, by itself, immediately dangerous. The observatory does not, at this time, have an explanation for the shift. The observatory advises the public to remain calm, to remain indoors after sunset, and to refrain from direct visual observation of the eastern sky during nighttime hours until further notice. A second update will follow within 12 hours. End statement. I have read this statement twice now, to myself, before reading it to you. I want to be careful with what I am about to say. The observatory has, in my 34 years on the air, never once issued a statement using the phrase, the Earth's orbital path. That phrase belongs in a textbook. It does not belong in an emergency advisory. It is in this one. I will keep my voice steady. I will keep reading. At 10:15 p.m., I am pulling the regional weather feed. Temperatures across the county, which had been holding at 53 degrees, have moved. The feed now reports 48 degrees, with a wind reading of, and I will read this exactly, south, drifting east, drifting east, drifting east. The feed appears to be looping that phrase in the wind direction field. Barometric pressure is reading 30.01 inches, which is normal. Humidity is normal. Visibility is normal. The only abnormal value is the wind direction field, which has now been repeating drifting east for the past 4 minutes. I am setting the wind field aside. The rest of the feed is functioning. The temperature has dropped 5 degrees in 45 minutes. The forecast did not call for that. At 10:22 p.m., we received a call from a woman in the Ashford Hills neighborhood on Hollow Brook Lane. Her name was Frances, and she gave her age as 51. She was, she said, calling from her kitchen. Frances said her phone had rung about 10 minutes earlier. She had answered. The voice on the line had been her mother's voice. Her mother passed away in 2019 of a long illness, and Frances said she would recognize her mother's voice anywhere. The voice on the line had said only one sentence, and Frances repeated it to us slowly, carefully, the way you would repeat the directions to a place you needed to find again. The sentence was, "Don't let the last sunrise touch your skin." Frances said the call ended before she could speak. She said she sat at her kitchen table for 10 minutes, staring at the phone. She said she called us because the phone was now ringing again, on the kitchen wall, and the caller ID was showing her mother's old number, and she did not know whether to answer it. I told her not to. I told her, calmly, to take the phone off the hook, to step away from the kitchen, and to sit somewhere with the lights on. I told her we would stay on the line with her as long as she needed. There was a pause. I heard her set the receiver down on what sounded like a wooden surface. I heard footsteps. I heard faintly in the background the other phone ring once, twice, 3 times, and then stop. I heard nothing else. The line was open for 9 more minutes. Francis did not return to it. Priya has tried the callback. The number rings without answer. We have passed her address to Ashford Hills Dispatch. I do not know what else to do for her. I am sorry. It is now approaching 11 o'clock. I want to take a moment off the wire and off the calls and speak to you, briefly, the way one person speaks to another. My wife, Ellen, is at home tonight. She has been ill for the last 1.5 years, and she sleeps lightly. She tends to wake at the sound of a car in the drive, or the click of the back door, or the kettle on the stove. I called her at the start of my shift, the way I always do, to let her know I had made it to the station. She answered. She sounded tired but well. She told me to bring home bread on the way back. I told her I would. I am thinking of her tonight. I am thinking of the bread, and the kettle, and the kitchen, with the small light over the stove that we leave on for each other. I want you to know that I am sitting in a chair, in a booth, and I am a person, and I am thinking about my wife. That is true. I want it to be true on the air, the same way it is true off of it. It is approaching 11 o'clock. We will be back in a moment with more. You are listening to AM 1720 TLF, the last frequency emergency broadcast. It is now 11 o'clock at AM 1720 TLF. Priya has been working the wall map for the last 2 hours, marking caller locations with a black pen. The pen is running out of ink. She has switched to a second pen. The second pen is also nearly out. The map is no longer a county map. We have pinned a regional sheet next to it. Calls are coming from Lincoln County to our east, from Clearwater County to the north, from Hartwell County across the river, from Marrow County, from places further out than this signal should reach. We have logged a call from a man on the coast, 400 miles from this studio, who said he was sitting on his porch listening to AM 1720 TLF on a battery radio, and wanted to confirm that he had us, clearly, with no static. He should not have us at all. I am not going to dwell on that. I am going to keep reading the reports as they come in. At 11:06 p.m., the Department of Defense issued a bulletin through the National Emergency Broadcast Wire. I am reading it now in full. To all broadcast partners and civil defense networks, the department, in coordination with the National Astronomical Observatory and allied agencies, confirms an ongoing orbital and atmospheric anomaly affecting the Earth's relationship to the Sun. The mechanism of the anomaly is not yet understood. The effect of the anomaly is being measured in hours, not days. Residents are advised to shelter indoors during nighttime hours, to keep curtains closed on east-facing windows, to refrain from observing the eastern sky directly with the unprotected eye, and to remain near a functioning radio receiver. Emergency services are operating at reduced capacity. Non-emergency calls to 911 should cease immediately. A further bulletin will be issued in 6 hours. Signed, General M. Halloran, Office of Civil Coordination. 6 hours. The bulletin says 6 hours. The observatory said 12. The wire phrase said 48. We are receiving 3 different time frames from 3 different agencies, and none of them agree. I am going to keep reading what arrives. That is all I can do. Between 10:30 and 11:15 p.m., we received 3 calls I want to walk through together. The first was from a husband and wife in the Cedar Grove area, on Birch Street. They said their answering machine. They still have one, the kind with a small cassette tape, had a new message on it when they came home from dinner. The voice on the message was the husband's brother, who passed in 2011. The brother said only, "I'm coming for the sunrise. Don't open the door." The husband said the timestamp on the message was tomorrow morning, 6:13 a.m. Tomorrow. The machine had recorded a message that has not yet been left. The second was from a middle school teacher in Belmont, who said her wristwatch, a wind-up watch, mechanical, no battery, had begun to run backward. She said it had begun at 10:05 p.m. She had timed it against the kitchen clock. The kitchen clock was moving forward. The wristwatch was moving backward. Both were moving at the correct rate. She said she had not yet decided which one to trust. The third was from a young father in Eastwood on Oak Lane. He said his 3-year-old son had woken up about an hour ago, walked into the living room, sat down on the carpet in front of the eastern window, and said a single sentence. The father said, "The boy does not normally speak in full sentences." He said, the boy looked at the window and said, "It already happened, Daddy." Then the boy went back to bed and is sleeping normally now. The father said, he is sitting on the floor outside his son's bedroom, with the door cracked open, listening to make sure the boy is still breathing. He said he called us because he needed to hear another adult's voice. The detail. Each of these 3 calls involve time. Not place, not weather, not light. Time. A message from the future. A clock running backward. A child speaking in the past tense about something that has not yet happened. We are due, at this time, for a short music interlude. It is a piece we play every Monday night at 11:30. A soft instrumental that runs about 3 minutes. I am queuing it up now. Stand by. The track is playing. I can see on the console that the track is playing. The needle is moving. The signal is going out. But what is coming through the studio monitor is not the music. What is coming through the monitor is a low voice, just beneath the static, repeating one phrase over and over. I will not repeat the phrase. I am going to cut the interlude. I have cut the interlude. We are back to live mic. Priya has confirmed, through the booth glass, that the same voice was audible in the engineer's monitor. She heard it as well. I am not imagining this. I want to apologize to any of you who heard that broadcast across your radios. I do not know what that signal was. I do not know how it overlaid on a track that has been in our library for 6 years. I am going to set the music aside for the rest of the night. We will continue with voice only. At 11:40 p.m., I am pulling the weather feed one more time. I am doing this because the listener at home deserves the most accurate information I can give them, even when the information makes very little sense. The current temperature reading is 42 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind direction field, which had been looping drifting east, now reads simply east. Wind speed reads 12 miles per hour. Sunrise tomorrow, according to the feed, is at 5:47 a.m. Sunrise tomorrow, according to every almanac on this desk, should be at 6:14 a.m. The feed is reporting a sunrise 27 minutes earlier than the calendar allows. I will say it plainly. The sun, according to this feed, is going to rise 27 minutes early. I do not know if the feed is wrong. I do not know if the calendar is wrong. I am telling you what the screen says. There is a small monitor above the booth door that shows the station lobby. I have glanced at it twice in the last hour, instinctively, the way you check the time on a kitchen clock. The lobby has been empty both times. It is empty now, with one small difference. The standing lamp in the corner of the lobby, which has been on a timer since I started at this station, is off. The timer is set to turn it off at midnight. It is 11:46 p.m. The lamp is off 14 minutes early. I am noting it. I am not going to investigate it. The booth door is locked from the inside. At 11:49 p.m., the studio line rang. The studio line is a direct internal number. It rings only from elsewhere in the building, or from a small list of station personnel, I answered. The voice on the other end was my own voice. I want to say that carefully. The voice on the line said, "Walter Crane, you've already done this broadcast. You don't have to do it again." I did not respond. The voice waited a moment and then said, "But you're going to." The line ended. The studio line indicator went dark. I am going to keep broadcasting. There is nothing else to do. I want to step away from the reports for a moment and address you directly. My name is Walter Crane. I am 61 years old. I have been a radio broadcaster for 34 years, the last 19 of them at AM 1720 TLF. I have a wife named Ellen who is asleep at home, and a small kitchen light I leave on for her when I am working overnight. I am telling you this because I want you to know who is talking to you tonight. I want you to know there is a person at the microphone. I am not a recording. I am not a wire feed. I am a man with a wife and a stove light and a habit of bringing home bread on the way back from work. I am also going to tell you, as plainly as I can, that something is happening tonight that I do not understand. I have read the bulletins. I have read the wire. I have taken the calls. I have looked at the weather feed. I do not know what is coming. I know only that the sun, according to the equipment in this room, is going to rise earlier than it should. I know that calls are arriving from the dead. I know that clocks are disagreeing with each other. I know that the eastern sky has been described, by multiple callers, as smudged. If you are hearing my voice, I want you to do a few things, and I want you to do them now, while you have time. Close your eastern curtains. Charge any battery-powered devices you have. Fill a few containers with water. Sit somewhere in your home where you can hear the radio, and where you can see the people you love. Do not go outside tonight. Do not answer calls from numbers you recognize as belonging to people who are no longer with us. I will continue to broadcast for as long as the signal will let me. We will return shortly with more information. You are listening to AM 1720 TLF, the last frequency emergency broadcast. It is now 1 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. We have been on the air for 4.5 hours. The switchboard, which was crowded an hour ago, has gone quiet. There are now only 2 lights blinking on the board. 2 callers, holding the line, not speaking. I can hear them breathing when I open their lines. I am leaving the lines open. Priya is still in the booth across from me. She has not left her station. She slid a note under the glass 20 minutes ago that said simply, "I'm staying." I nodded to her through the glass. She nodded back. We have not exchanged any words since the music interlude failed. We do not need to. At 12:53 a.m., the Department of Defense bulletin promised for 5 a.m. arrived early. It arrived 4 hours and 7 minutes ahead of schedule. I am reading it now exactly as it was sent. To all surviving broadcast partners. The Earth's orbital path has stabilized at a new position. The atmospheric effects of this shift will become visible at local sunrise. The sun will appear in a position approximately 3 degrees north of its expected azimuth. Direct visual observation of the sunrise is not advised. Direct skin exposure to sunrise light is not advised. The duration of these conditions is unknown. End statement. I want to draw your attention calmly to the first phrase of that bulletin. The phrase is, "To all surviving broadcast partners." I will not interpret it. I will only point it out and move on. The bulletin also uses the phrase, "is not advised" twice. Not is dangerous. Not is prohibited. Is not advised. As though the government has chosen the gentlest possible language for something it is not yet ready to name. At 1:18 a.m., Our broadcast signal began to carry something underneath itself. I want to describe this carefully. Priya alerted me first through the booth glass, pointing at her headphones. I put on my own pair. Beneath my voice, beneath the room tone, beneath the carrier signal of AM 1720 TLF, there is now a layer of other voices. They are quiet. They are not loud enough to interfere with the broadcast, but they are present. The voices are not speaking over each other. They are speaking together, in a soft unison, the way a small congregation speaks a familiar prayer. They are saying one sentence, and they are saying it over and over. The sentence is, "Don't let the last sunrise touch your skin." I recognize the sentence, of course. It is the sentence Francis's mother said on her kitchen phone 6 hours ago. It is the sentence we have now heard from 4 other callers in 4 other neighborhoods, each of whom received a call from someone they had buried. The voices in the signal are not callers. They are not on the phone lines. They are inside the carrier wave itself. I do not have a technical explanation for this. I am going to keep broadcasting underneath them. My voice is louder than theirs, for now. At 1:34 a.m. the studio line rang. I picked it up. The voice on the other end was my wife. I want to tell you about this because I want you to hear me say it out loud. Ellen has been ill for 1.5 years. As I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, she does not, normally, call the studio line. She knows the number, because she helped me memorize it the year Afari started here, but she has never used it. She uses the cell phone in her dressing table drawer, because she likes to hear the ringtone she chose for me. She has not called the cell phone tonight. The voice on the studio line said, "Walter Crane, the kettle is on. I left the bread out on the counter. The eastern window is open, and I can see the most beautiful color." I asked her, calmly, to close the window. I asked her to step back into the kitchen. I asked her to sit at the table and wait for me. The voice said, "I want to see it, Walter Crane." I asked her again to close the window. The voice was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I love you. Bring the bread." The line ended. I want to be careful with what I say next, because I do not want to be wrong about it on the air. The voice on the line was Ellen's voice. The cadence was Ellen's cadence. The phrasing was hers. The mention of the bread was ours, from earlier this evening. I have not called her back. I do not know what voice will answer. Let me set that down for a moment. Let me come back to the broadcast. At 2:06 a.m. we received what I believe will be our last caller of the night. The caller was an older man. He did not give his name. He said only that he was sitting on his front step, in his coat, with the lights inside his house turned off behind him. He said he wanted to ask me a question. I told him he could. He asked if I had ever heard, in my life, of a sunrise being called beautiful by someone who lived through it. He said he had been thinking about that. He said every sunrise he could remember was described as beautiful by people who lived to see another one. He said he wondered, tonight, if that was a kind of trick. He said he wondered if the people who described the last one ever got to describe anything again. I did not have an answer for him. I told him so. He thanked me gently for taking the call. He said he was going to go inside now and sit with his daughter. He said his daughter had driven down from the next county to be with him tonight. He said he had not seen her in 2 years, and that he was grateful, very grateful, for the chance. He hung up. I sat in the chair with the headphones on for a long moment, and I listened to the soft unison of the voices in the signal, still saying their one sentence, and I thought about Ellen, and the kettle, and the eastern window standing open in our kitchen. The clock on the wall reads 2:11 a.m. The clock on the console reads 4:53 a.m. I am no longer trying to reconcile them. The sky outside the small window above the booth door is, when I lean back to look at it, beginning to lighten. slowly, 3 hours early, in a place along the horizon where the sun does not normally rise. It is now 2:47 a.m. by the wall clock. By the console, it is something else. I am going to use the wall clock for the rest of the broadcast. I want to speak to you directly now, for the last time tonight. My name is Walter Crane. I have been a broadcaster for 34 years. I have a wife named Ellen who left our eastern window open, and a kitchen light I leave on for her when I am working overnight. I have given you my name tonight because I want you to remember that someone was here, that a man sat at this microphone on a Monday night that became a Tuesday and tried to read the weather to you, and tried to take the calls, and tried to keep his voice steady when the bulletins began to arrive early. I am not panicking. I want you to hear that. I am not panicking, and I do not want you to panic either. There is nothing to be gained from it. Whatever is coming at the eastern horizon is coming, and the only thing left to decide is how you spend the time between now and then. Here is what I would ask of you, if you will let me ask. Go to the rooms in your home where the people you love are sleeping. Sit down beside them. Lock the doors, but do not bolt them, in case someone you love needs to come inside. Close the eastern curtains. If you do not have curtains, hang a sheet, a coat, a blanket, anything that will keep the light out when it arrives. Do not answer any calls from numbers you recognize as belonging to people no longer with you. Do not open your door to any voice that asks you to come outside and see. If anyone in your home asks you to come and see, sit down where you are and ask them, gently, to come to you instead. Keep the radio on. I will stay at this microphone for as long as the signal will let me. Priya's still here. The 2 quiet callers are still on the board. We are not alone, and you are not alone. If tomorrow the sun rises, and it may in some form rise, please, I am asking you plainly, as a man who has been talking to you all night, please do not look. This is Walter Crane, on AM 1720 TLF, the last frequency emergency broadcast. If you are hearing this transmission, emergency conditions are ongoing. We have, by my best estimate, less than a day. I will spend mine here with you, on the air. Hold the line. We will return shortly with more information.